That was the video, an epic journey that I organized by Cree. One of the things about that historic event was it changed the course of the Cree people, and it had a profound impact on our way of life. And I want to ask Dr. Matthew Coon Come about that event, how that transpired.
The Naskum Wayne suggestion did you she's the badge wearing that then I go to be to Odiak. You know, well, thank you very much, Wayne. I guess I'll share a story. It's a Cree story. It's not a myth. It actually happened, and it's a result of the Inuit and the Cree coming together, saying that enough is enough when it comes to announcement of projects that would dispossess them, drive them off the land, affect a way of life with no real consideration of the impacts. Because we learned from the James Bay 1 that that project was neatly exempted from any environmental impact assessment. So when this announcement was made, it's a $19.5 billion project. So you can imagine the government being excited about this project, but certainly to the Crees, this would be devastating and would be totally unacceptable. So it was in 1989 that the Crees met together in Montreal. And that's when we decided that we would take a stand and say enough is enough, that we will develop a legal strategy, a communication strategy, and a strategy to go down and do something that never been done before. You see, it's a form of insanity to do the same thing over and over again, expect different results. And my attitude was, let's look around what others have done when there are projects that are announced by federal, provincial governments, and just do the opposite of what they're doing. So we had to do something very unique in order to tell our story. So I'll begin by saying, I guess Odiak is there, you know, how it started. Bill Namagus and I worked very closely together. And Bill received this call from a gentleman named Danny. He kept bugging him. And he said, Matthew, get this guy off my back and go meet him. So I went down to Plattsburgh and I met this guy, Danny. He was a canoeist. And all he did was he told me a story and said, look, they wanted to build a dam on this little creek, you know, and I figured it would destroy a very pristine land. So he said, I had a canoe. I put a camera in front of the canoe, and I paddled it. That was it. That was the story. When I left there, I said to myself, that's it. I got this crazy idea. So I called Bill Namagus. Well, I called Chief Roby Dick at that time, and I said, do our people still make canoes? You know, I know the Inuit have a very unique skill, but do we? And he said, yes. So I called Bill Namagus, and I said, hey, buy this lumber, send this lumber up to Wapmiqstu. We're going to build a canoe. And he said, what are we going to do with the canoe? We're going to paddle down. Where? Down the States. Didn't really know the route, right? But it was an idea that came. And sure enough, we got Chief Robbie Dick, who was very helpful. You know, an elderly man named Billy Will Tak or something. It was Billy. It was an elderly Inuit man that helped build that. And of course, as you could see from the pictures, you know, the front part was a canoe. The crease, that was the bow front, and then the stern part, as you can see, was Inuit. And we came up with the word, you know, for Cree word was ud, and then a kayak for the Inuit. So that's how we came up with it, called Odiak. Okay. You know, and we started off with the putting it on a dock sled, you know, from there from Wapmiqstu, and went to Sesame, put it on a truck, you know. The first time we put it in the water was in Ottawa River. Of course, we carried it to the footsteps of the Parliament Hill, made a speech there, and then took it down to the Ottawa River. And that's the first time that we put it in the water. And I remember, you know, we had these mics, and our people were telling us, because we had Inuit and Cree there, are we actually going to paddle all the way, like you said, to the States? And I said, no, our people used to portage. We're going to portage. Paddle all the way. Are you kidding? And when we, so from there, the trip itself would not have been possible without many people that helped us. When you do a campaign, you have to seek assistance. I mean, we exhausted all our avenues here. Debating alternative forms of energy, looking at demand-side management, looking at using the forums of in the House of Commons and the committees, the Aboriginal Committee, using the Energy Board, and debating in universities and across Canada, and we weren't getting anywhere. So that's when we decided that who is buying this energy anyways? It was the States. So we decided that we needed something that the media could focus on. That was part of our strategy. And ODAC was very helpful to us. But it was a symbol of the resilience of our people to stand up to the powers that be and tell their story. Of this project that was announced would flood the five major rivers at the mouth of Great Whale. And certainly lessons learned from the James Bay project, where there was no environmental impact assessment, really helped us. And then telling our story, our way of life as hunters, fishermen, trappers, that we had an economy that supported ourselves, that we were very self-sufficient, and now that would be destroyed. So the story that we told in the States, of course, that was the story. And we lobbied. I met with all the governors of the New England states, from Massachusetts to Vermont to Rhode Island to upper state of New York, etc. And when we got to New York, we didn't know there was such thing as Earth Day. We were just minding our own business, paddling, and there were several that helped. By the way, Sapa Fleming was the mayor of Wabmextu. And his people joined us. Wabmextu people, I remember Matthew Mukash was there, Robin Nikaunkapa was there, and they had the youth at the high school, I believe it was Stella Masti, a youth that came with us, and the elders, the late John came with us too, the elder, and they're the ones that traveled. It was the Mohawks that helped us, Candir that helped us, navigate the Lake Champlain, etc., down to New York. And when I went off and on and just did the media scrums and all that. But when we got to New York, that's when we found out that there was Earth Day, and we were trying to get on the stage on Times Square. It looks impossible. But nothing is impossible if you're confident in yourself and you're doing something that's never been done before. And we were certainly doing something that's never been done before. And so we put a call into the mayor, Mayor Dinkins, who was the mayor of New York. Managed to get a meeting with him. Bill Namagus was with me. Sapa Fleming was with me, and myself. And we met with Mayor Dinkins. And when we walked in, we already had a lot of coverage from the media. So he knew who we were. And he said, what can we do for you? And I said, all I want is to get on that stage on Times Square and pull my Odiak on the stage and tell our story. And he said, is that all? I said, yeah. But what's interesting is Mayor Dinkins is a Afro-American. And this is what he said after we told him our story. He said, maybe it's time where we can redeem ourselves the way we treated our own indigenous tribes here in the United States. And I knew exactly what he meant, and I picked it up and I said, so you're going to allow us to take our boat on Times Square? and of course, that's what happened. But that wasn't enough. We also took Odiak to Amsterdam and to appear before the International Water Tribunal. We used every avenue that we could. All the the government's committees that they set up, asked for hearings in Albany, New York, and then went into the international community. This International Water Tribunal is a very prestigious tribunal, and I appeared before that. We had maps that we had, of the project itself, and I call it the environmental racism. I mean, why do you build up projects in indigenous lands and you tell Indians to move over in the name of development, but they don't do that down south, because they would have an outcry. So I was sharing our stories of the land, of our relationship to the land, because the land, we identify ourselves in relation to the land as hunters, fishermen, and trappers. And I'm a son of a hunter, and I've been on the land with my dad using dog teams. I know what it's like, and so I was just telling the stories that I've heard from our elders, from Wabmextu, of course, from Sesame, the impacts that they felt from the first project, and the stories that I know off the land that I learned from my dad. So when we were in Amsterdam, and I was cross-examined by these lawyers. I was the only one that was allowed. I was with the late Bill Kurdinsky. And I was referring to these documents because we asked for a separate independent body. Even though under the agreement we have Section 22, where the proponents have to submit their projects for review. I felt that was inadequate. So we called for an independent review that actually had teeth, that could really look at the economic impacts of a project, because no mega projects of hydroelectric development have ever been stopped based on impacts on the environment or on people. So I knew the argument would be, let's get some economic arguments, do some economic studies, and that's what the review did. It was interesting, that review that I did, because we were so out on the news, I couldn't meet with the the federal minister of environment, so we can talk about this idea of creating an independent environmental review. So we met actually in Rio, because there was no media there. And that's where we agreed to do an independent review, to review and study and make a report recommendations on the Great Wheel River project. So at the hearing, that's what I was referring to. I knew it by heart. I didn't have it with me. And the judge says, Mr. Coon Come, can I have the report? I didn't have the report with me, but Bill Kurdinsky, I whispered to Bill Kurdinsky, and I said, do you have the report? He says, no, I don't. So I said, I need a document, okay? And he pulled out this document. And I took that document, and I said, here's the report, put it on the table. It wasn't a document. The judge said, okay, that's okay. And I told Bill, he said, what are you doing, Matthew? And I said, never mind, we'll send him a copy anyways. We'll misplace it. I don't know, there's so many people there, And so that really helped us, the judgment that came, because there was this whole many environmental projects that were happening on indigenous lands. Have been involved in the drafting of the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and the impacts it has on over 400 million indigenous people across Canada. I met a lot of indigenous leaders, and I was aware of the projects that were started on their lands. And so it became in the front pages of treatment of indigenous peoples around the world. So it was, on the one hand, timing was on our side. So when I appeared before the tribunal, we also had the Odiak with us, and we were paddling in the canals, and we had a lot of coverage, and so once we've done that, and then I was in Albany, in the state of New York, doing hearings. That's where one of the first times that I met Robert Kennedy, Jr., and he was making a presentation. He's an expert on eskers, and I looked at his presentation. I said, you know what your problem is, Robert Kennedy? You've never been to our community. And I told him, when you appear before the chairman of the hearing, he's going to ask you a question. The first question he's going to ask you is, have you ever been to James Bay? And I said, now I'm telling you, I am now inviting you to James Bay. When you ask that question, you tell them that I'd invited you, and you're going up there next week. And that's how that happened.
Okay.
You know, and from there,
And he came.
and he came. Yeah,
Okay,
he was
good.
a mix too. That's how that happened. And then, and of course, he helped us carry the canoe and all that. And he was the one that took me around in the legislatures with the congressmen, with the House of Representatives in Albany, in the state of New York. And I met with all the legislatures, you know, and explaining the project, you know. Of course, some were pushing it because it's a $19.5 billion project, and they were the ones that were buying the electricity, you know, and they wanted the project, you know. But I was presenting. See, it's not enough to say no when something is announced by the government. The government doesn't have all the answers for looking at alternative ways of doing things. So you have to present an alternative. In other words, bring a solution to the problem. What is the solution? Well, they have a monopoly on providing electricity. So we were talking about issues like alternative forms of energy. You know, let's look at the renewable energy. These were sexy words that didn't come around. You know, this is the 90s. Renewable energy announcement was made in 2001 by the federal government. You know, you're going to look at wind energy and solar energy. We were talking about that in the 90s, talking about alternative forms of energy, that wind, solar, you know, looking at demand-side management, energy-efficient programs, you know, and that's what I was presenting, you know, aside from, of course, telling the story of the impacts that this project would have. So I debated there, you know, and then a lot of you, when you pick a fight, you have to present the vision. And when you present the vision and it's clear, ours was very simple. No, you know, because of didn't explain the impacts, you know, etc. People will follow you. We have many environmental groups that help us. Too many for me to name them, and many people that help us. Even with ODIAC, when we're paddling down, people have provided lodging, meals, you know, etc. It's not a one-man show. You need a team to do it, and you need a strategy. A political strategy, a legal strategy, a communication strategy to be able to advance and tell your story, you know. And I was just happened to be the Grand Chief that led the fight, but certainly I could not do it alone without the help of many people, including the Cree leadership, you know. And then we were in New York. I remember when we met with Mayor Dinkin, you know, and others. I got a call from, I have to be careful, Meryl Streep, and she said, "Can I walk with you?" Because there were many celebrities that wanted to appear on Earth Day as if they were taking a file, right? So I got the call and talked to her, and I said, "I'd like to go with you on stage," you know. I said to myself, what is my wife going to think? Here's Meryl Streep, you know, in my arms walking on stage. I said, I ain't going to do it. You know, it ain't going to happen. And then I got a call from the late Mr. Reeves, who played Superman, right? So I turned to our group and I said, hey, guess who on our side? Superman. I mean, we had a lot of fun, you know. Unfortunately, some of the people that I worked with are no longer there. Dave Mastey played, Dave Mastey played a really crucial role. You know, I remember Larry from Sesame. You know, he played. He was the one that was taking. He was the guy responsible for portage with our canoe, you know, and many people. Bill Hoyt, who was a legislator in the St. Albany, was really helpful to us. He opened the doors for us to meet with the legislatures and tell our story. You know, we weren't afraid to take our story, you know, not just within Quebec. Then, of course, I was debating on secession in New York, you know, I believe it's at Cambridge, and I'd finished, and I'd get on the plane, and then Bill Namagos calls me and said, the whole media is going to greet you, you know, when you land in Ottawa. And I said, what for? He said, well, Paraso just made an announcement that he put the Great Wheel River on ice. And he said, be ready. And that's all he said. Man. So I'm on my way, I'm thinking, wow, what am I going to say, I mean, you're fighting, you're on the roll, and all of a sudden, they stopped the project, so what are you going to do, right? So when I got off, I thought about what I'm going to say. And the interview there, I remember when I was asked, just made an announcement, Paraso, he's going to put the Great Wheel on ice. And I said to myself, ice can be thawed. Because they will never stop. They're adamant that they're going to go ahead with their grand scheme of flooding lands on the basis that there's a consumer demand, and the shortage of electricity. They'll never stop. That's why I said that. But I also knew that because of James Bay 1, the first project, that we needed a time. Our generation felt the impacts because of our parents that were dispossessed and marginalized and driven off the land and could not contribute of their hunt and their kill to our ceremonies, whether it be a walking out the ceremony or feast that we have, and I understood that. And I said to myself, my generation will say no. We will fight it. That enough is enough. We're not gonna. With everything that we have in us, we will fight it. Did we have the money to do it? In the beginning, no. We had zilts, but we had the directive from our people. That we had to go to the Board of Compensation and argue and present the case of how much we want because we're going to go to court. We need money to develop our communication strategy. Do you think it was easy? No, it wasn't. What are you going to do with our money? What are our people going to think? It was not easy. It's your own people. Even our own people said, that's too big, you can't do it. When people tell me that, that's when I say, I'm going to show you that we can do this. You'll never know until you take that fight. So the fight itself was very historical. This is not a legend. It's not a myth. It's a reality. Today, I remember Lis Bacon said, when we were fighting, he said there'll be a major blackout. Quebec is going to be dark. All these fear-mongering, 35 years later, the river is still flowing, and the Crees are still here. The rivers are saved. It gives us time for our next generation to decide what they think is best for them, We stopped it for a while, lessons learned, and now let's move forward,
Awesome. That's a great story. I remember when the Widiak came from Womaxto. It came from right across the road. I was just passing by, and I was running, and I seen a whole bunch of people there, right, on the road, waiting for the Widiak. But I didn't know at that time it was the Widiak that was coming in.
Yeah.
So I asked around, well, what's going on? So I parked on the side, and sure enough, that was the dogs with the Widiak. That was amazing. Yeah. And to hear it on the news, that they stopped the project, that they're not gonna, but to hear it firsthand from somebody like you, one of our Cree leaders, that kind of put it on ice, as you put it. So I want to ask Christine if there's any comments from our audiences. Christine?
Miigwech Wayne and Miigwech Dr. Matthew Coon Come. So we do have some comments from the audience, and here it says, I'll read it to you, Matthew. I love that the Inuit and Cree were working together in this demonstration, showing that banding together creates great strength and has a powerful effect. That was one comment. Another one is we're asking for your input on this. It says, thank you, Matthew, for being a leader in voicing environmental concerns and the effects they will have on the local people, as well as presenting alternative solutions. I fear this is still a big issue across Canada. Any comments on that, Matthew?
When we worked with the Inuit, the Mayor Sapa Fleming, I learned from our hunters. I remember my grandfather saying, if you take one branch, you'll break it. But if you take many branches, very difficult to break. I understood that. That's what I call indigenous knowledge. And you take that and you apply it. I've always said that information without experience, knowledge without experience is just information. You need wisdom to apply that indigenous knowledge. And I knew that we needed to work together. And what makes to leadership took that lead, and made sure. And I knew that in those days, in the late 80s and 90s, as you recall, many things happened. Oka happened, Gustafsson in BC happened with the forestry, out east with the fisheries, with the Mi'kmaq. And you could see that there was tension and that you needed, I think indigenous people needed a win where they could say, yes, we did it. And I realized that. I wanted to create an atmosphere where indigenous people across Canada can feel like, yes, we did it, And we can take on the federal government, we can take on a provincial government, we can take on a multi-corporations, And many people have learned from our strategy, that if you tell your story, we don't have to burn down buildings, ours was very peaceful. And just present your case, present a solution, and then let the chips fall where they may fall.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments, Christine, from the audience?
Yeah, we have a lot of viewers on the net. And I just want to say hello and acknowledge them. And thank you for joining us on this virtual festival. So acknowledgement to Dr. Matthew Coon Come. Thank you for the amazing story and the adventure of the Odiak. So just people are saying hello to you, and they're very excited to be here to hear your story. So back to you, Wayne.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew Coon Come, for honoring us with your presence and the story. It's a wonderful story. First time I hear it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.